to the practice of esteeming self. Today, I would like to show you a way for building a solid core of invincible self-worth that will stay with you even when facing the most dignity-denying and threatening of contexts. I am Arthur Bloom, and in my practice as a coach and trainer, I empower individuals and organizations to actualize their potential. Consider that this presentation is more than the mere conveyance of information. I will be conveying an understanding of self-esteem, but following that, I will be demonstrating a self-esteeming technique or pattern where we will be developing 3 metastates, or states of mind. States are full-body experiences, so the effectiveness of this technique will depend on your fully engaged and active participation, using all of your senses, especially your sense of your own physiology. I know that there are those among you who, no matter what I say, will only listen to my words. And there are those who will follow my instructions, but do so only in their minds. Those who benefit most will be those who, when the time comes, stand up, shift your physiology, use the space around you to be fully engaged in acting out my instructions. A psychotherapist friend of mine once told me that one of the most common problems that his clients came to him with was the self-diagnosis of low self-esteem. Many adults in our culture struggle at finding a way to build and sustain a strong and robust sense of self-worth. Maslow saw self-esteem, or ego strength as he called it, as a prerequisite for self-actualization. For him, ego strength enabled an individual to face reality as is, avoiding a automatic and immediate fight or flight reaction to some aspect of that reality. Some modern biologists say that organisms, even at the cellular level, have 2 modes of existence. They have this growth mode, where the energy of the organism is directed outward, enabling the organism to grow and expand its influence into the environment. And they have a defensive mode, where the energy of the organism is directed inward to protect and defend the organism from toxicity and threats that it perceives in the environment. I am amazed at how much children learn in the first few years of their life. And even more amazing is that they do this learning primarily through the feedback that they get through their experience of reality as is. They are in a learning zone, growing and expanding their influence into the environment. Their learning is unmatched by us as we grow older. Maslow says the following, and I quote, "I think of self-actualization not as an average person with something added, but rather as an average person with nothing taken away." What is taken away from us as we grow older? Why do we have to work at getting into this learning zone when we are adults, when it seems so natural and easy to these young children? The answer lies in our development of our cognitive and meaning-making capabilities. At a very early age, we begin to develop language by making judgments and distinctions in our reality. Using our initial distinctions, we make additional distinctions. And we add layer upon layer, frame upon frame, frame of reference on top of frame of reference. gradually building a very dense map that gives us meaning and makes our reality intelligible, sensible. As we grow older, this map of the world mediates our experience of reality. We act on the basis of our map of the reality and not on reality itself. These maps have been a tremendous benefit to our species. They enable us to carry out projects that extend beyond our lifetime. Pan-generational projects like our science, our development of science, where we stand on the shoulders of the giants of previous generations to explore new territories, to ever expand the influence of our species into the environment, into the universe. But on the other hand, we have we can create meaning that drives us into this defensive mode. We can create meaning that is toxic and threatening. Not too long ago, I was taking care of my 3-year-old grandson, and we were having breakfast together. And during breakfast, I could tell that my grandson wanted something. And I couldn't figure out what it was. He wasn't communicating it very well. And he was getting very frustrated that I wasn't giving him what he wanted. So at one point I said to him, "Grandson, use your words." And I was surprised by his reaction. He broke into tears. He seemed devastated by my comment. I realized at that point that these words were the exact words that his father would use when he was acting out, when he was having a tantrum. This wasn't the case. I don't know exactly what was going on in my grandson's mind, of course, but I imagine it was something like this. These words coming from me, someone who he held in fairly high regard, he interpreted as an accusation that he was acting out, that he was having a tantrum. It wasn't true, so it was a false accusation. And he found this threatening to his security, and it drove him into this defensive mode of being. I wonder what kinds of meaning you have developed that are threatening and toxic to you. And if you really think about it, how toxic are these meanings in actuality? Would they prevent you from existing? If you think of a cell, when it experiences a threat and it goes into defensive, it's because the being of that cell is being threatened. Is that the case with meaning? I don't think so. So these meanings then, these toxic and threatening meanings that we create, are in actuality cognitive distortions. They are untrue meanings that we have in our map. To combat this defensive mode that we create through the meanings in our maps of the world, we have to develop better maps of that world, maps that better reflect reality as is. And one of the main distinctions that we can make for combating this defensive mode of being is the distinction between the conditional value of our human doing and the unconditional value of our human being. Let me deal with human doing first. Our human doing is the whole activity of discerning and judging and making distinctions that we use to make up our map. And it consists of our actions, our communication, our feeling, our passion, and our thinking, our thoughts. Our human doing is the subject of our judgment and making distinctions. It's necessary for us to judge whether our behavior is appropriate for a given social context. We make judgments about our actions on whether they are getting us closer to our outcome or not. And we judge our abilities, our capacities, to know whether we are confident enough to carry them out. An example of this: driving a nail into a piece of wood. Two things we need. We need to be able to hit that head of the nail on with the hammer. And we need to hit that nail hard enough so that it goes into the wood. To hit that hammer hard enough, we have to feel confident enough that we can hit the head of the nail so that it'll go in. So our confidence is conditional on our ability. They kind of go hand in hand, because the ability is also dependent on the confidence. Overall, the generality of our individual competencies and the confidence that goes along with it is our self-confidence. The unconditional value of our human being, that is something that we take for granted. It's a given. We as human beings are valuable in and of itself, intrinsically. It is not dependent on anything we do. But our value, our self-worth, is constant all the time. If we think of a baby, we treat babies for the most part as very precious and valuable. Why? Because they can't really do anything. They're not skilled at anything. So we don't apply any of the judgments that we would apply from our human doing onto the baby. The baby is valuable only because it is a human being. And we forget often that same reason for valuing that baby is the same reason why we should value ourselves. If we were going to develop a graph, with the horizontal axis being our timeline from cradle to grave, and the vertical axis is our sense of value from 1 to 100%. If we were to plot our self-confidence on that, our self-confidence when we have low capabilities, few competencies, would be very low. And it would gradually increase until as we developed our competencies, our confidence would increase until we got to our midlife, where it would vary a little bit. And then toward the end of our life, if we lived long enough, when our competencies began to diminish, so would our self-confidence. In contrast, our self-esteem, our unconditional positive self-regard, should be at 100% throughout our life. Our value as human beings is at 100% throughout our life.